All right, let's dive into Raja Yoga today.
Yeah, you're ready to unlock some mental clarity and self-mastery?
Always. And I think we've got the perfect source for that. Swami Vivekananda's take on Patanjali's yoga aphorisms, specifically that first chapter, right?
Yeah, that's the one. It's like the foundation for the whole system of Raja Yoga.
Okay, so before we get too far, let's start with the basics. Two terms we hear a lot, chitta and vritis. What are they all about?
Well, think of Chitta as, mind stuff. It's like a lake, constantly in motion. But this lake, it's not your true self, not the soul.
So the soul is separate from chitta.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The soul's more like the observer, and the Chitta, well, that's like the instrument the soul uses to interact with the world.
Okay, I think I'm following so far. So where do the vritis fit in with all of this?
Those are the waves and ripples in the lake, the thoughts, emotions, and perceptions that just keep popping up.
So every time I have a thought, experience an emotion, or even just see something, that's a vritti.
That's it. And the thing is, these vrittis, they kind of distort our perception of reality.
Like looking through a wavy glass.
Perfect analogy. And the goal of Raja Yoga, it's all about calming those waves so we can see clearly.
I like that. So how do we even begin to calm those mental waves?
Well, first we're going to understand that Chitta has three different states: tamas, rajas, and sattva.
Those sound familiar. Tamas, that's the darkness, the inertia. Rajas is like all that energy, the passion. And then there's sattva, that state of serenity, calmness, right?
You got it. And here's how it ties into mental clarity. Sattva, that's where the true clarity shines through.
It's not about being dull or spaced out.
No, not at all. It's more like this heightened awareness that comes when your mind is focused and calm.
So cultivating sattva is like setting the stage for mental clarity.
Exactly. Now, we got to factor in our senses.
Because we experience the world through them, but are our senses the actual source of the vrittis?
Not quite. Vivekananda says our senses are just instruments, gathering information from the world, like throwing stones into the lake of our mind.
And each stone creates a vritti, a ripple in the lake.
You got it. But here's the key. We get to choose how we react to those ripples. Let them become big waves, or keep them small.
So it's not about ignoring the senses, but more about controlling how we react to what they tell us.
Exactly. And to do that, it helps to know about these 5 different types of vrittis Patanjali talks about.
5 types. Okay, I'm all ears. What are they, and how can knowing about them help us gain control?
Well, the first one is right knowledge. Basically, seeing reality accurately. Then there's indiscrimination, where we mix things up.
Mistaking one thing for another.
Yeah, like when we chase some fleeting pleasure thinking it'll bring lasting happiness.
Oh, so like getting all caught up in social media likes, that temporary ego boost?
Exactly. And then there's verbal delusion. That's where words, they create these false beliefs in our minds.
Ooh, with all the misinformation out there these days, that one feels super relevant.
It is. Then we have sleep.
Wait, sleep? That's a mental modification.
It might sound strange, but even when we're asleep, our minds are creating impressions that affect us when we wake up. And finally, there's memory, the recall of past experiences. All of these, they're constantly shaping how we see the world.
So by recognizing these vrittis, we can start to see them as, what, modifications of the mind, not the absolute truth.
Exactly, and that's so important because each vritti leaves an imprint on the chitta, the samskara. Think of them like seeds, shaping our future thoughts and actions.
So if I keep having negative thoughts, they create negative samskaras, which then make me more likely to have more negative thoughts. It's like a vicious cycle.
Yeah, that's the idea. It's how habits form, both good and bad. But the good news is we can change those habits by changing our thoughts and actions.
Ah, so we're not just stuck with our past conditioning. That's where the whole self-mastery aspect comes in.
Absolutely. And one of the most powerful tools for this is non-attachment, or viragyam.
Didn't Vivekananda use that example of someone stealing a watch to explain this?
He did. Basically, if someone steals your watch, and you can choose not to react with anger, that's viragyam in action.
It's not about suppressing emotions.
Nope. It's about gaining control over how we respond instead of being ruled by our immediate reactions.
So it's about cultivating a sense of inner peace and freedom no matter what's happening around us.
You got it. And this ties in directly with mental clarity. When we're not constantly reacting to everything, our minds naturally become calmer and more focused.
It's like building a buffer zone between the external world and our internal state.
I love that. Now, once we understand the importance of calming the mind and this non-attachment, we can start exploring the different paths to samadhi. the state of perfect concentration.
So samadhi is like the ultimate goal of Raja Yoga.
It's definitely a major milestone on the path. And
Okay.
there are two main types, samprajana and asamprajana.
Could you break those down for us? What's the difference?
Samprajana samadhi, it involves different stages of meditation, each with its own focus. Could be an image, a mantra, even your own breath.
And asamprajana.
That one's a state of, how to put it, seedless concentration.
Seedless.
Yeah, the mind becomes completely still, free from all those thoughts and modifications, pure awareness beyond all duality.
Wow, that sounds incredibly profound.
It is. Words can only point us in the right direction. These experiences have to be directly realized.
So all these stages, they're leading us towards a samprajana samadhi, where the mind merges with pure consciousness.
That's right. It's like polishing a mirror until it perfectly reflects the true self.
But I bet there are challenges along the way. We talked about those obstacles. Disease, laziness, doubt, distraction. How do we deal with them when they pop up?
Well, everyone faces them. It's all part of the process. Vivekananda's advice: approach them with patience and perseverance.
Like training for a marathon.
Exactly. There will be days you don't feel like running, but you push through because you know that finish line is worth it.
Consistency is key.
Absolutely. And don't underestimate the power of community or a guide. Someone to offer support and wisdom can make all the difference.
It's always helpful to have someone who's been there before guiding the way. But even with support, our minds wander, right? What do we do when we get distracted during meditation?
Gently bring your mind back to the object of focus. No judgment. Don't get frustrated with yourself. It's natural. And remember Om. Repeating it can help refocus the mind and plant positive seeds.
Right, Om. More than just a sound, it's like a vibration connecting us to something bigger.
Exactly. Now, as we aim for deeper concentration, it's crucial to remember Vairagya, that non-attachment we were talking about.
We talked about the concept, but what does cultivating Vairagya actually look like day to day? I think that's where a lot of people struggle.
It definitely takes effort and awareness. Say you're really attached to the outcome of a project at work.
Oh, yeah. Been there, put in a ton of effort, really want it to succeed.
Right. Someone attached to the outcome is going to experience stress, anxiety, maybe even disappointment if it doesn't go as planned.
Yep, expectations can be a trap.
But with Vairagya, you shift your focus. You still give it your all, but you detach from the need for a specific result. You accept that you can't control everything.
So it's about finding that balance between effort and surrender.
Exactly. This applies to everything. Relationships, goals, even our spiritual journey. Real happiness, it doesn't come from external achievements. It comes from inner peace and acceptance.
This is starting to sound like a superpower. Finding freedom and joy no matter what life throws at you.
It is. And the more we practice Vairagya, the more space we create for samadhi to emerge.
Because if we're always clinging to desires and aversions, our minds are just too turbulent to experience that deep peace and clarity.
Exactly. It's like trying to meditate in a hurricane. Calming the inner storm through Vairagya, that's how we create the right conditions for samadhi to blossom.
So Vairagya isn't about becoming emotionless or passive. It's about choosing our responses and finding freedom amidst all the ups and downs.
Beautifully put. And as we dig deeper into samadhi in the next part, we'll see how this non-attachment plays a huge role in reaching those higher states of consciousness.
Okay, so we were talking about Samprajana Samadhi with all its different stages.
Right. Each one taking us a step closer to that ultimate clarity.
It's like climbing a mountain.
Yeah, I like that.
Yep.
Each level gives you a wider view, but you got to work to reach the next one.
So where do we start this climb? What's our base camp?
Savitarka Samadhi. The mind's focused on something, but it's still analyzing, picking it apart, putting it in categories.
So like if I'm meditating on a tree and I'm thinking, okay, roots, trunk, branches, leaves, that's Savitarka.
You got it. It's all about understanding the parts. But as we go up, we get to Nirvitarka Samadhi.
And what changes there?
You're not dissecting the tree anymore, you're just experiencing it directly. No labels, no thought constructs.
Ah, so it's less thinking about and more being with.
Exactly. Shifting from intellectual understanding to direct perception. That's huge for developing real mental clarity.
Makes sense. If we're always analyzing and labeling, we never really get to just be present with the experience.
Exactly. And then our climb takes us to Savichara Samadhi.
Savichara. What happens there?
We go even deeper, focusing on the subtle essence behind the object. Instead of the tree itself, you might meditate on the life force flowing through it.
Tuning into the energy behind the physical form.
Yeah, that's it. A more refined kind of perception.
I bet it takes some serious mental stillness to reach that level.
It does. But the journey itself changes you. Every step of the way, we're shedding mental clutter and conditioning, letting that inner clarity shine through.
So what's at the very top? What awaits us at the highest level of Samprajñata Samadhi?
Nirvichara Samadhi.
And what's that like?
Even though subtle essences fade away, you experience pure bliss and unity.
Wow, that sounds... I don't even know if words can do it justice.
They can't. Words can only point us in the right direction, but these experiences, you have to realize them directly.
So all these stages, they're guiding us towards a Samprajñana Samadhi, that seedless state where the mind merges with pure consciousness.
Right. Like polishing a mirror until it reflects the true self perfectly.
But we talked about those obstacles before. Disease, laziness, doubt, all that. How do we handle those when they inevitably come up?
Every seeker faces them. It's all part of the journey.
So how do we work with them?
Vivekananda says, approach them with patience and perseverance. Think of it like, training for a marathon.
Okay, I can see that.
There will be days when you just don't want to run, but you got to keep going. Because that finish line, it's worth it.
So consistency is key.
Absolutely. And don't forget the power of community or a good guide. Having that support, that wisdom, it can make all the difference.
Having someone who's walked the path before us, that can be so valuable. But even with the best support system, our minds still wander. What should we do when we get distracted during meditation?
Gently bring your mind back to what you're focusing on. No judgment. It's normal. Don't beat yourself up over it. And remember,
Right-om. Repeating it can help.
it can refocus the mind. Plant those positive seeds.
It's more than a sound. It's like a vibration connecting us to something bigger.
Exactly. And as we go for deeper concentration, it's important to remember vairāgyam, that non-attachment.
We talked about the concept, but what does it actually look like in practice? Day-to-day life. That's where I think a lot of people struggle.
It takes effort, that's for sure. And awareness. Imagine you're super attached to how a work project turns out.
Oh, yeah, I've been there. You put in so much work and you just want it to be perfect.
Someone attached to that outcome, they're likely going to feel stress, anxiety, maybe even disappointment if it doesn't go their way.
Expectations can be a real burden.
They can. But with Vairāgyam, you shift your perspective. You still put in the effort, but you let go of needing a specific outcome. You realize you can't control everything, and that's okay.
So finding that balance between giving it your all and accepting what is.
Exactly. And this goes for everything. Relationships, goals, our spiritual path. True happiness, it doesn't come from what we achieve externally. It comes from that inner peace and acceptance.
This is starting to sound like a superpower. Finding joy and freedom regardless of the circumstances.
It is. And the more we practice Vairāgyam, the more space we create for Samadhi to happen.
Because if we're always clinging and resisting, our minds are just too chaotic to experience that deep peace.
Think of it like trying to meditate in the middle of a hurricane. Calming the inner storm through Vairāgyam. That's what allows Samadhi to blossom.
So Vairāgyam isn't about becoming some emotionless robot. It's about making conscious choices and finding freedom in the midst of life's ups and downs.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And as we explore Samadhi even more in the next part, we'll see how this non-attachment plays a huge role in reaching those higher states of consciousness.
So we've been talking about Samadhi as this peak experience in Raja Yoga.
Yeah, like reaching the summit.
But it's not just about getting to the top, is it? What happens afterward? When we come back down to everyday life, how does experiencing Samadhi, even for a short time, affect us?
That's a great question. Gets right to the heart of why this all matters. Even a glimpse of Samadhi, that pure awareness, it plants a seed.
So it's not like turning a light switch on and off. It stays with us.
More like a gradual unfolding. The insights, the peace you experience in Samadhi, they start to filter into your everyday awareness.
So maybe we're not walking around in a constant state of bliss, but our perspective changes.
Exactly. You might notice you react to challenges differently, more calmly. Relationships might deepen because you're coming from a more grounded, compassionate place.
Like ripples spreading out from that stillness within.
Perfect analogy. And remember, we've got those two types of Samadhi. Sampajana, with all those stages, and Asamprajana, the seedless state.
Right, and Vivekananda really emphasizes that Asamprajana Samadhi is where true liberation happens, Kaivalya. What makes it so special?
Think of it as complete union with the true self, with pure consciousness. All the mental chatter, the vrittis, they just dissolve. Even the sense of I, as separate from everything else, fades away.
That's almost impossible to even imagine, let alone achieve.
It's definitely beyond the realm of ordinary thought. Trying to describe asamprajata samadhi with words was like trying to capture the ocean in a teacup.
So it's something we can only grasp through direct experience.
Exactly. But even if we haven't reached that level ourselves, understanding the concept helps us see the incredible power of Raja Yoga.
So even if full liberation seems way out there, the practices themselves are bringing us closer to that inner peace and clarity.
Absolutely. Every time we meditate, every time we practice non-attachment, we're moving towards realizing our true nature.
It's not passive though, right? We can't just sit around and wait for enlightenment to strike.
Definitely not. That's where the other aspects of Raja Yoga come in.
Hmm.
The postures, the breathing exercises, the sense withdrawal, all of that prepares the body and mind for those deeper states of meditation.
Building a strong foundation for the journey inward.
Exactly. And even though samadhi is a big goal, the journey itself is so valuable. It's not about becoming superhuman. It's about realizing the potential that's already inside us.
So the main takeaway is that the power to change our lives, to find real peace and happiness, it's available to everyone.
That's the beauty of it. And Raja Yoga gives us a path, the tools to access that power. It's not about chasing happiness out there in the world. It's about waking up to the joy and freedom that's already within us.
This has been an amazing exploration. I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of Raja Yoga. Thank you so much for taking us on this deep dive.
My pleasure. And for everyone listening, remember, the journey of self-discovery, it's a lifelong process. Embrace the challenges, the insights, and most importantly, the potential for transformation that's within each of you.
And that wraps up our deep dive for today. Keep exploring, keep learning, and until next time, keep diving deep.